The saying goes that if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. So if you want to go somewhere new, you have to leave behind all the places you've been.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into the science and spirit of happy, a logical path to soul.
G'day, y'all! Welcome back! Wow, so we are talking about letting go of who you've been before, but also letting go of the people, places, experiences, situations that you've been through before. Because we're going somewhere new, right? This whole season is talking about creating the kind of relationships that you really want to be in. And my whole shtick is making the dream life, like everything that you dream about, your biggest goals, easy and effortless. The way that I do this is by kind of changing you into your real self, into your truest self. That involves releasing and kind of scouring off all of the experiences and the reactions and the coping and the programming and just everything that has primed you to thrive in the situations that you've already been in. Because people who have their dream life and know exactly what they need to get to their heart goals and, you know, make progress towards those goals in line with their expectations, like those people aren't coming to me and asking, what do I do? You know, feeling like life is repeating itself, or like they're not quite sure how to actually, you know, live a sustainably successful life, how to really, really drop into who they want to be. So the people who are struggling with that are necessarily struggling with a kind of alignment, but the way that I talk about it is they're struggling by being molded into a shape that doesn't actually represent who they really are. When we start to understand who we really are, which is symbolized, denoted, illustrated by the things that we want, the friends that we want, the relationship that we want, the kind of family we want. All of these desires depict a shape that we truly are, a shape that is aligned with us, with our soul, right? With the perfect, the pure in us. So when we get that vision, and when we have the power to follow that desire, when you find somebody like me to let you be empowered, let you want and strive to create these things, we're necessarily changing your shape. So we're changing your shape, which means your situations that you fit are going to change. The situation that you're in now, when you start changing your shape, either the people around you, the environment around you also shifts to make room or to close in on places you're no longer willing to extend yourself. We're talking about extending and overextending yourself in the people-pleasing episode. But the environment has to either adapt to your new shape or you need to leave, right? It doesn't fit anymore. It starts to fall off. We have free will. So that is half of everything that I teach is making the right decisions, because you can change your shape. But if you don't actually decide that you're going to let go of situations, then you'll just change back, right? Like this has to be a forward motion thing. So it's really up to the people around you and the situations around you on whether or not they're coming with you to this new place or whether they're going to meet you in your new shape. But necessarily, many people won't. It is what it is. Like, many people won't. Most people don't even know how to change. That's why change is so difficult. If you look at, people trying to lose weight, people trying to make more money, people trying to, have healthy relationships when healthy relationships weren't modeled to them. Like, you look at the statistics, people just repeat what their parents did. Our health that is not genetic repeats the same patterns as the life that we were born into, our family, how much money we make, what tax bracket we fall into, who we vote for, who we marry, the relationships that we end up in. People make very small advances, but generally speaking, it just stays the same. You have to accept that most people aren't coming with you, especially if you're going to make dramatic change. And I have a very ironic relationship with letting people go and letting situations go when they no longer fit me. Because I feel like I'm a master of it. I've done this so many times. I've reinvented myself so many times on this path towards becoming the best version of me. But it's also really, really hard for me. Like, I don't want to let anybody go. I don't want to let anything go. It's like in my character to just be extremely flexible. My mother used to laugh when I was a child. She said that she could put my plate in front of me, like wherever on the table, like a foot away, and I would just move my body towards the plate instead of moving the plate. It's like a standing joke in my family, but that's who I am. I'm really, 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 really flexible until I can't bend anymore, and then I just snap and have to go. Or have to draw a really firm boundary. Who I am is somebody who will constantly try to work things out. You can't hack this stuff out. We talked about this. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but you can't hack out people's influence on you. But for some reason, I always seem to think that I can, or I don't give as much value to the value of the people around me as I should probably. So, but I'm also somebody who'll cut and run, right? I told you, I'll bend and bend and bend till I can't bend anymore. And then I'm I'm out, done. So yeah, I think I'm kind of an interesting person to be talking about this. I have reinvented myself quite a number of times. So I was a high school dropout. I barely even did high school. I think I have grade 9 by Canadian North American standards. I was, using recreational drugs and drinking heavily. And I ended up traveling instead of going to high school, and I got into cooking, and I like pretty much immediately got into cooking at a quite a high level. And like quite within, a year or two of cooking, I was cooking for Michelin starred chefs running stations in high-end kitchens in Canada here. I worked for the chef that represented Canada at the Bocuse d'Or, which is kind of like the Culinary Olympics, and ran one of the hardest stations in the kitchen for him at that age. Right. So I went from being, a delinquent to being, I don't know, kind of like a rock star, almost a little bit, a rock star in the making, at least. And then I had a spiritual awakening in Asia when I was studying food there. And I completely switched my life to living devotionally, right? Becoming a master healer, spending all of my days, studying and doing, inner work and healing work, etc. And then that studying led me to Western academia, where I become a serious academic, which, was like rational, liberal, strategic, going from this like very, very like spiritual living person to this like very, very brainy kind of rational Western, just, I don't know what you call it. Like I was very much like a part of the institution of academia. And now I'm an online educator who is like embracing all sides of me. And, I've come up against criticism from, academics that were in my circle. I've come up against criticism from, people in my spiritual world before that, they like treat me like, call me a sellout, treat me like I'm less than because of, I don't know, like becoming more like mainstream or whatever. And yeah, my academic people think that now I'm a sellout because I'm online instead of, keeping all of my research in the ivory towers where nobody can access it. And, like I just have to like let that stuff go, right? In order for me to grow into the person that I want to be, I have to really decide for myself who I want to be, how I want to be, what that looks like, and let everything else go, right? So, like, I've let a lot of people go, and, many of those people I didn't want to let go. And also, many of the people that I want to let go, I still feel beholden to them. I still feel like, and this is my job, this is my purpose, is to help people through their trauma. And the only reason that people act badly is because of trauma. So like, even when people have treated me badly and I've created space, as soon as I feel safe, I always feel like I should go back and help. I mean, it's crazy to me. If I was mentoring me, I would be like, you're stupid. It's different when you're, feeling that sense of beholdenness, that sense of responsibility, when you've been made to feel responsible for people like that. So I'm going from like intergenerational trauma, throughout, generation after generation after generation. One side of my family is First Nations, and the story is horrific, right? So I'm coming from like a long line of trauma to having like a healthy family and having a successful profession that is legitimate and just accredited. And it's just such a, I mean, by all means, if you heard my life story, I should be an addict, in a project somewhere. Really, that's my story ended up here because of me, because of me deciding for me that I was going to move forward. And that means that I've had to let a lot of versions of me go too. Through all of these changes, I've had to let a lot of people go, a lot of situations. I've had to let a lot of judgments go. when I was taught to take on judgments like they were, should be like my own inner knowing, other people's judgments, I've had to let that go. I've had to let, my coping go, my coping mechanisms. I was at different points in my life. I was extremely judgmental and sarcastic, cynical, hyper vigilant, and tending towards like people pleasing and highly anxious, highly anxious. And those things, they come back sometimes. Been kind of working through that stuff, which is what inspired me to start this podcast so that I could kind of help people at the next level. These are things that I had to learn to let go. And when I say let go, I don't mean push out, because the ways that we cope, they protected us. Okay, they protected us. They saved us. They're not things that you can push out. Okay, they're instincts. They're deeply programmed. And even though they're problematic now, they were actually highly effective at some point. They have to be dropped to move on. But really, it's really about evolving to a place and having the agency and the strength and the consciousness and the awareness to open up and let go and not cling to these things anymore, because you can't push them out. This is the only way that they go, is when they're not needed anymore. And the way that they're not needed anymore is when you create safety in your life, when the environment around you supports you, is safe, creates safety for you. To have a different life, you have to change your shape. But in order to change your shape, you need the space. And people who fit like a glove into the weird shape that the coping mechanisms have formed you into, you have to separate to create that space. And like, unless they're going to grow with you and they're going to change the shape of them too, to fit you in a different way, then you have to let go. And when you start changing your shape, these environment, these people and situations, they're not going to fit you anymore. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing. We talked about how others affect you in episode 3 of season 2, why who you're around matters. And I talked about the Harvard study where 95% of your success can be attributed to your reference group, which means the people around you. We also talked about the smoke room incident, where people that were around others that didn't, pretended not to see the smoke, wouldn't raise the alarm, because we look to the people around us to tell us what's okay. So if the people around you aren't okay, you're not going to be okay. Imagine your best life, right? Imagine your best life, right? Okay, imagine the house, the spouse, the body, the bank balance, the friends, the family, okay, that you want. Who are you around? If you can't really put yourself in that position, who is someone living that life around? And are the people around you like that? If not, if you want to get there, you have to let them go. Even after you've let go, you still need to let go of the energetic and emotional ties. And this is what I was talking about, feeling beholden to people, feeling responsible. Part of that for me is letting go of who I used to be. Like realizing that what I was told was being a good person, like being beholden to people, feeling responsible for them, that's not actually what I think a good person is, and just like dealing with that guilt and releasing the shame. You know, guilt and shame are completely different. So guilt says there's something wrong with what you did, and shame says there's something wrong with you. So letting go of that shame, doing what you can about the guilt. And when you get far enough, you'll start to feel pity about the people who have, you know, mistreated you, misshapen you, caused you to react in ways that gave you these coping mechanisms that are not, you know, copacetic for aligning you with, you know, a good life. And that pity can sometimes, if you have been trained to take responsibility for people, that can turn into guilt, into feeling like you could do something for them, you know, into like you've done something wrong. Now you're in this empowered place. And these poor pitiful fools who are so lost that did all this wrong to you, you know, you might feel a sense of guilt to go back and try and save them, but you can't. The pity, actually, when you start to feel pity, that is a really good indication that you're healing. Like, you need to keep going with that and letting go of those emotional and energetic ties, realizing that you're beholden to no one. You're beholden to, aside from your children. And next season, I'm going to do a whole season on parenting, or the first parts of parenting anyways. So tune into that, because you are beholden to your children. But the same goes, like, your parents were beholden to you. So like, it's not your responsibility to like do anything for your parents whatsoever. Like, that's not your responsibility. If you've been raised in a loving home where you want to do things for your parents because that's like part of your relationship, that you that's what you want to do, then that's a completely different thing. But for, you know, parent-child relationships where the parent is pressuring, where the child is supposed to take care of the parent, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. You are not beholden to your parents. You did not ask them to be born. You did not sign a contract saying, well, if you have me, then I'm going to be kind to you or whatever. Like, no, they decided to have you. They're beholden to you, and you're beholden to your kids. But like, other than that, other than your children, like, you don't owe anybody anything at all. And that's not like your license to be a D. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you don't owe anybody anything. It's up to you whether you want to be a D or whether you want to be awesome to people that you think are awesome. It's up to you how you want to show up in this life. I had a friend who is Russian, and Russians are notoriously quite rude to people that they don't know. And they're absolutely like some of the warmest, most incredible people to be like close friends with. Like, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe, like, you know, I'm Canadian and I'm saying this. I'm Canadian, and we think that we like owe everybody politeness all the time. That's my culture. And, you know, if you want to be Russian, like there's nothing wrong with that. You don't owe anybody anything except for basic respect. And we talked about in the fighting episode, if people don't give respect, then they lose their right to it, pretty much. Go and listen to that one if that is ringing in your ears. What happens when we're told that, you know, doing this is like being a good person? It gives us a false sense of integrity. It's the wrong, right thing. And that really, it compromises our ability to even get in touch with our true values. It really compromises our ability to respect people or to claim respect, because integrity necessarily comes from what you think is right. Right? I was talking about how like the foundation of my sense of right and wrong comes down to, you know, human rights. I think that's probably a pretty popular, you know, foundation for people to decide what is right or wrong. But deciding what's right or wrong based on, you know, a foundation that is like personal to you, that's integrity, right? And that's what aligns you with your dream life. That's how things get easy, is that you align with the person you're supposed to be, your desires, your values. You know, your desires are your values. What you value is what you desire. Your desires, your values, they illustrate your purpose and who you really are. And if you don't fall in line with that, you're compromising yourself and your mission. You have to really embrace what I call energetic integrity and be who you really are. The Zero to Hero course teaches you how to change your shape, and that's available right now.